Aquaba. That's better. When we, all of us who love Africa, come together collectively with compassion, we can eliminate third world poverty. Recently, 12 young footballers were trapped underground in a cave with floodwaters costing any way of them to escape. On top of that, not one of them could swim. They were not of any significance. They were not political refugees who were hounded by the paparazzi, nor were they on a football team that was going to play in the World Cup. And yet, people from around the world flocked to some little village in Thailand to rescue the children. Some people were willing to give their lives in order to bring the children to safety. Collectively, they created a plan for rescue. And all of us watched, holding our breaths, as the children were taken one by one through the caves underwater with divers. When the last child came out, we all cheered, and then we all mourned because one of the divers lost his life. Compassion helps to fill the empty bellies of the hungry. It gives hope to the helpless, and it restores wholeness to both the giver and the receiver. Several 100,000 nonprofits, NGOs, work in Africa all over, and their goal is to help alleviate third world conditions. But progress is most often stopped and blocked by unsavory practices. You know what I'm talking about. Bribery, stealing out of shipments, stealing from people's suitcases for goods that were meant for others. There's lying and cheating. I've been in places where I can clearly see what the cost of something is, and they look at me, and because I'm white, they decide that the cost has to be 3 times that amount. And I'm actually buying it for children in their country. People in power abusing their power for their own selfish gain. When that happens, all change for good is negated. According to Berkeley psychologists Paul Piff and Draker Keltner, on their study of compassion and wealth, people who attain wealth and political status are more likely to lie, cheat, and steal than those who are poor. People with power, as they gain power, tend to distance themselves from those they left behind. When altruism is replaced with selfishness, compassion is totally thrown away. Yet, we, you and I, we have the power to alter those statistics. Once upon a time, there was an African king. He had a vast land, beautiful palace, many wives, and only one son. He knew that his time was coming to an end, and his son would inherit everything. And he thought, wow, my son has only ever known wealth and status. How can he really appreciate all that I've done without knowing how the rest of the world lives? I'm going to take him on a journey. And so they journeyed out. And that evening they came to an inn. And as they got down off of their horses and they headed towards the inn, there was a beggar lying on the ground. And he cried out, "Oh, gracious king, have compassion on me, your servant." And the king kicked dirt in his direction. Now the son was not the least bit surprised. His father had always treated servants or anyone he felt that was below him with disdain. The son, though, was curious because as he stood there, he watched an older woman come by, and she looked at him, and she took off her waistcloth, and she threw it to him so that he could cover up for the night. Pretty soon, a young, handsome man with a beautiful woman on his arm came by as well. And she looked at him with begging eyes as she saw the beggar. And he reached in his pocket, and he threw a few coins in the beggar's direction. They kept on walking. But before long, a very young stable boy came out of the stable. And he had in his hand one thin crust of bread. Now, he was very thin, and he looked every bit as hungry as the beggar did. And yet, he stooped down, looked in the face of the beggar, and offered his crust of bread. The beggar, with eyes streaming down his face, blessed the boy. And the young son, well, he knew something he had never known before. And the beggar's smile and the smile on the stable hand filled him with great joy. That evening when the king asked, "So what did you learn today?" And he said, "Well, my father, I learned that you have amassed a great fortune. But I also learned that while we live in a beautiful palace, many of our people are homeless. And while we dine on sumptuous foods, many of our people lay hungry. But together, they come together and they help one another. I know that some of them help only out of pity because they're afraid that one day they may find themselves in that same situation. Others help only when someone is looking and they can look good in someone's eyes. But when someone gives out of compassion with great love, they experience great joy. Thank you, my Father, for all you've done, because someday I want to work with my people so that collectively we can show compassion and we will know great joy. That's what happened to me. When I first went to Ghana in 2004, it was the compassion that brought me there and kept me there. I was totally speechless. And as you can see, being speechless is not something I'm used to. But there I was, coming back from Ghana. I had seen so much. I had felt so much. And people could ask me what was happening, and I couldn't begin to tell them. Because it just was inside of me. And I've worked with impoverished Americans since I was a teenager. But poverty in the U.S. is different than poverty in Africa. And in the bush villages that I had been visiting, people did not have access to clean water. They had to go for hours to get any kind of health care. And girls were denied education. That is what kept me going. I decided to start an NGO to help girls learn and get educated, as well as to help mothers know more about health care. I've worked in Ghana for 13 years as an NGO. Over 1,000 children have learned how to read English, and over 10,000 books have been distributed to children and small schools. Thank you. There are program after program. I work collectively with Ghanaians, with Ghanaian teachers and Ghanaian nurses, and together we come and figure out a plan that would help to educate, help to alleviate suffering that is happening. I do it with great compassion. I have many Americans who have come with me because of their compassion. Some who have gone year after year after year because of their compassion for the little ones, their compassion for the teachers, their compassion for the nurses. But those roadblocks sometimes make me stumble. And when I'm back in the U.S. and I'm raising funds, I have to sometimes think, wow, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to put myself through this again? I met a German, and he had a passion for healthcare. And he decided to send over 3 containers of healthcare equipment that had been donated by a hospital. Beds, operating room tables, gurneys. It was a lot of equipment. He had worked with the Ministry of Health and asked them, if I send it, will you take care of it? Will you see that it comes out? Of course we will. The shipments arrive, and 2 ministers of health get into an argument over who gets to take credit for the shipment arriving. It's been 6 years. The shipment is still sitting in dry dock. In the meantime, there are people lying on the dirt floor in the hospital because there are no beds. When egos and power get in the way, problems are not solved. Instead, more problems are created. However, if you give out of selflessness and work together, those problems can be solved. No child should be living in third world conditions. We are charged to see that that doesn't happen. We are also charged with seeing that the roadblocks, those bribes and lying and stealing, also are eliminated. We are the compassionate ones who will work together collectively. Mother Teresa said, no one, not even me, can do great things. But each of you can do small things with great love. And when you do, we will do something wonderful together. Compassion plus collaboration equals eliminating third world status. Each individual, each family, and each government has this opportunity. We can create a village, a country, and a continent, as well as a world of compassionate, caring people, collectively doing what's right. Madasi.
Wow. Thank you so much.